The human fleet moved through the void, scarred but unbroken. Each ship bore the marks of countless battles. The hulls scorched, engines trembling from previous assaults, and crews still weary from endless hours of combat. Yet the spirit of humanity remained unshaken. Every officer, every pilot, every engineer knew the stakes. This was not just another engagement. This was the final strike, the decisive battle that would determine the fate of the Thalran, and perhaps the galaxy itself. Admiral Selena Varga stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, gazing at the star map that showed the swarm's central hive world. The planet was enormous, its surface darkened by the shadow of the enormous Draxon hives that sprawled across continents. The planet emitted a strange, pulsating energy, a sign that it was alive in its own terrifying way. "We've studied their movements," Varga said to her captains. "This is their heart. Destroy it and the swarm loses coordination. Every hive, every fleet, every strike is connected to this planet. If we succeed here, we end this war." Her officers nodded, determination burning in their eyes. The weight of the task did not intimidate them, it focused them. Humanity had faced impossible odds before. Now they were prepared to face the impossible once more, knowing that they were the galaxy's final shield against extinction. As the fleet approached the hive world, the Draxon launched their final line of defense. Thousands of ships emerged from the planet's orbit, moving with frightening speed and precision. Massive hive ships, larger than anything humanity had ever seen, led the assault. The void exploded with fire as rail cannons, plasma lances, and drone swarms clashed with the relentless enemy tide. On the horizon, Admiral Varga's voice commanded clarity amid chaos. "Form wedges. Protect the carriers. Starfighters, engage the outer flanks. Focus fire on the hive ships." The first wave collided with the human fleet. Ships twisted, spun, and collided with energy blasts lighting the darkness. Fighters darted like lightning, weaving through enemy fire to strike vulnerable targets. Boarding teams leapt from one ship to another, planting charges and sabotaging critical systems from within. Captain Rio of the UES, dauntless, led a squadron of frigates on a daring maneuver to flank a massive hive ship. "Hold formation, don't break line," he shouted. His squadron darted forward and with coordinated fire, pierced the enemy's armor, causing explosions that shook the void. Above the chaos, human engineers worked tirelessly. Repair drones were launched to damaged ships, shields were reinforced, and weapons recalibrated mid-battle. Even in the thick of war, humanity's precision and adaptability shone. Every tactic was calculated, every maneuver carefully executed, yet the Draxon were not easily defeated. The hive world seemed to pulse with energy, sending waves of reinforcements at every direction. Enormous pods containing living war creatures launched from the planet's surface, raining down on human ships. Starfighters dove into the waves, sacrificing speed and safety to intercept the pods before they reached critical vessels. Admiral Varga did not flinch. She studied the battlefield, her mind calculating hundreds of variables at once. "Prepare the spear fleet," she ordered. "Full power. We break the heart of the hive today." The spear fleet, the largest and most powerful segment of humanity's armada, surged forward. Dreadnoughts led the charge, their plasma lances burning like the sun, tearing through the swarm's lines. Carriers released thousands of starfighters in synchronized waves, overwhelming the enemy's defenses. Destroyers and frigates darted between the larger vessels, striking weak points and protecting critical ships from sudden attacks. Meanwhile, boarding teams targeted the largest hive ships. Humans fought their way through alien corridors, planting explosives and shutting down systems. Every detonation sent shockwaves through the enemy ranks, breaking formations and sowing confusion. Even amid danger, they moved with courage, knowing that their actions would save millions of lives. On the planetary surface, humans coordinated with Thalran forces. The aliens had learned to fight again under human guidance, using their knowledge of the planet's terrain to support the assault. Together, they created a strategy that combined human firepower and Thalran understanding of the environment. Hours passed. The battle stretched across the void, a continuous storm of light, fire, and movement. Ships were destroyed, hulls cracked, and explosions illuminated the darkness like fireworks, though far deadlier. Yet the human fleet advanced steadily, never retreating, never faltering. Finally, Admiral Varga gave the order. "Focus all fire on the hive world's core. All weapons, from the smallest fighter cannons to the largest dreadnought lances, locked onto the planet's central hive. Energy beams converged, creating a blinding light that burned across space. The hive world trembled. The surface cracked, massive structures collapsing inward as explosions consumed entire sections. The planet's pulse slowed, its energy faltering under the relentless assault. From orbit, the human fleet watched as the hive world erupted in a cascade of fire. Shockwaves rippled through the void. Disintegrating remaining Draxan vessels caught too close. The central hive collapsed, its destruction sending a message to every remaining swarm fleet across the galaxy. Humanity was unstoppable. Silence fell over the battlefield. The void once filled with war was now eerily quiet. Smoke and debris floated across space, marking the final moments of the swarm's power. The human fleet, though battered, remained intact, a testament to discipline, courage, and strategy. On the horizon, Admiral Varga allowed herself a brief moment to breathe. She looked at the stars beyond, at the countless lives saved, and at the Thalran worlds now free from imminent destruction. The price had been high. Ships lost, brave crews gone, countless scars left behind. But victory was theirs. Captain Rio approached her, his face streaked with soot but smiling. "We did it," he said softly. Varga nodded. "Yes, but remember, it was not just about the weapons or the ships. It was the will of every person in this fleet. That is what made us the deadliest force the galaxy has ever seen." The Thalran, witnessing the victory from their worlds, fell silent in awe. Lyra, the envoy who had first contacted humanity, whispered, "They did not just save us. They showed us what courage truly is." The victory echoed across the galaxy. News of humanity's triumph spread quickly to distant civilizations, many of which had doubted the young species. They learned, as the Thalran had, that humans were not merely fighters, they were guardians, innovators, and protectors. When others faced impossible odds, humanity stood firm. When hope seemed lost, humanity carried the fire forward. Even as celebrations began, Admiral Varga knew the work was not yet finished. Humanity had destroyed the central hive, but scattered swarm remnants remained. They would continue to hunt, to hide, and to attempt to rebuild. The fleet would need to remain vigilant, ensuring that no new threats could arise. But for now, humanity had shown its true power. The deadliest fleet ever assembled had faced the greatest danger the galaxy had known, and survived. As the fleet regrouped, the Thalran expressed their gratitude. Lyra came aboard the horizon to speak with Admiral Varga personally. "Your people have given us life," she said. "We cannot thank you enough. The galaxy will remember this day." Varga smiled faintly. "It was our choice to help. No one else would. But humanity does not fight for glory. We fight because we must, because others cannot, and because it is the right thing to do." The envoy nodded, understanding at last what many had yet to learn. When humans acted, it was not recklessness or pride. It was a determination to protect, endure, and survive. In the weeks that followed, the human fleet repaired, resupplied, and strengthened its position in Thalran space. The survivors were honored, and those who had fallen were remembered. The victory had come at a cost, but it had cemented humanity's place as a force of unparalleled courage and capability in the galaxy. The story of the battle, of the courage of ordinary humans facing extraordinary threats, spread across stars. Other civilizations began to look at humanity differently, not as young newcomers, but as leaders, protectors, and a species capable of shaping the course of galactic history. And somewhere, far beyond the destroyed swarm worlds, survivors of the Draxan watched the humans leave, their once unquestioned dominance broken. They would think twice before striking again. Admiral Varga stood on the bridge of the horizon one last time before returning to Earth. She gazed at the stars and whispered to herself, "The galaxy is safer not because we fought, but because we dared to answer the call. And humanity will always answer, no matter the cost." The deadliest fleet ever built returned home, not as conquerors, but as guardians of life, hope, and the future. And the galaxy would never forget the day humans stood between destruction and salvation, proving that courage, ingenuity, and determination could change the course of history. The galaxy was ancient, filled with countless civilizations, but it was not free. For thousands of years, the Valar Dominion ruled the stars with iron discipline. The Dominion was not a single race, but a coalition of the strongest and most ruthless species. They enforced strict laws, drained weaker planets of their resources, and kept every civilization in check through fear. In this vast empire, humans were considered a small and unimportant people. The Valar often spoke of humanity as if they were nothing more than stubborn colonists scattered on the edge of known space. Their homeworld, Earth, was rarely mentioned in galactic councils, and most alien historians called humanity a minor species. But in dark corners of the galaxy, some remembered a different story. They remembered the First Contact Wars centuries ago, when human colonies tried to expand and met the Dominion's fleets. The conflict was short and brutal. Entire human settlements were destroyed. Records of these battles were buried, erased from most official archives, yet whispers lingered. One such whisper reached Captain Arik Danner, commander of a small human patrol ship, stationed on the edge of a forgotten sector. Arik was a man of discipline, hardened by years of service in quiet, uneventful postings. He had dark eyes that often carried a storm within them, a reflection of his restless spirit. Humanity had been silent too long, he thought. One evening, while reviewing old star charts inside his ship's modest command room, Arik stumbled upon a hidden archive. It was a damaged data crystal, half corrupted, left behind by an old merchant ship. The device contained fragments of ancient battle logs. The words chilled him. Colony 9. Exterminated. No survivors. By order of Valar High Command. Arik leaned back in his chair, his fists tightening. His people had been told for generations that humanity's early colonies failed due to accidents, disease, or natural disasters. But this was deliberate. The Dominion had erased not just lives, but the truth. He began to investigate further. Over the next months, he searched for hidden data caches, trading information with smugglers and scanning abandoned stations. Piece by piece, a picture formed. Humanity's early attempts to expand had been crushed not because they were weak, but because the Dominion feared what they could become. Far across the stars, alien leaders still remembered. In a council chamber on the Dominion capital world, towering figures of different species sat around a crystal table. The Valar overlord, a tall being with pale silver skin and eyes that glowed faintly blue, spoke in a calm but sharp tone. Reports speak of human ships moving in places they should not, the overlord said. They seek records, old stories. That is dangerous. Another alien, a scaled creature with emerald skin, hissed softly. Why fear them? They are scattered. Their fleet is small. Their worlds are few. The overlord narrowed his glowing eyes. Do not underestimate them. Humans are unpredictable. When cornered, they fight with a fury that shakes reason itself. It is why we ended their colonies before they could grow strong. Should they remember what was done, the galaxy itself would tremble. The council chamber grew silent. The thought of humans rising again sent a wave of unease through even the proudest rulers. Back on his patrol ship, Captain Arik Danner continued his search. He shared his findings only with a few trusted crewmates. One of them was Lieutenant Mara Seelan, a sharp-minded officer who had grown up listening to her grandmother's stories about lost colonies. When Arik showed her the records, her face turned pale. So it was true, she whispered. They didn't just let our people die. They destroyed them, Arik nodded. The Dominion erased our past, but we will not let them erase our future. Together they began to plan. Quietly, carefully, they spread word among human outposts and settlements. Messages were hidden in trade signals, disguised as simple navigation codes. Each carried a piece of truth, a reminder that humanity's suffering had been no accident. On distant fringe worlds, humans read the messages in silence. Farmers, miners, engineers, all paused to consider what had been stolen from them. Anger, long buried, began to stir. Meanwhile, among alien merchants and travelers, rumors grew louder. In dim spaceports over mugs of heated drinks, stories were exchanged. They say the humans found something. They say their ships are gathering. They say the past is coming back. Most dismissed these stories as drunken talk, but those who had lived under Dominion rule long enough recognized the tremor of truth. Every rebellion in history began as whispers. One night, as Captain Arik stood by the viewport of his ship, watching distant stars glitter like shards of hope, Lieutenant Mara approached. You've started something, Captain, she said softly. Arik did not turn. His gaze stayed fixed on the endless dark. Not just me. Humanity itself is waking. The Dominion thinks we are small, forgotten, but when the time comes, they will see what we truly are. The ship drifted quietly through space, a lone spark in the vast night, But sparks, if given enough fuel, could become fire. Far away, in hidden chambers where rulers gathered, one phrase passed from one mouth to another, heavy with fear. If humans rise, the galaxy will shudder. And so it began, not with a battle, not with a declaration, but with whispers across the stars. Whispers that carried truth. Whispers that carried fury. Whispers that would soon become a storm. The galaxy, vast and ancient, stirred uneasily. It had seen empires rise and fall, but it had never forgotten one truth. When humans decided to fight, they did not stop. The Dominion had kept them quiet for centuries. But silence could not last forever. Humanity was beginning to remember. And somewhere deep in the heart of the galaxy, destiny shifted. The score had not yet been settled. But the first move had been made. For generations, humanity lived under quiet shadows. On scattered worlds and distant stations, they tilled soil, mined rock, built trade ships, and raised families. Outwardly, they seemed content, blending into the great fabric of the galaxy. But beneath that calm surface lay an old wound, one that had never truly healed. That wound was the memory of lost colonies. The Dominion had erased much of humanity's past, rewriting history to make humans believe that their failures were their own fault. Diseases, accidents, unstable planets, such were the official stories. But survivors had carried different tales. Tales of sudden attacks, of burning skies, of alien warships that struck without mercy. These stories had been passed down in hushed voices, often dismissed as the exaggerations of elders. But when Captain Arik Danner uncovered proof, those whispered tales became truth. Humanity had not failed. Humanity had been silenced. Now that truth was spreading. On the frontier world of Reiner's Hold, a mining settlement carved into the cliffs of a frozen planet, workers gathered in a dim hall after a long day. A trader had brought strange news, a coded message hidden in a routine supply transmission. It contained fragments of data, reports of Colony 9's destruction, records that matched the old stories. The miners listened in silence as the trader read the words aloud. No one spoke at first. They sat with heads bowed, fists clenched and eyes burning. At last, an old miner stood. His beard was gray, his back bent from years of labor, but his voice carried steady anger. "They thought we would forget," he said, "but we have not. If what this message says is true, then the Dominion killed our people. They stole our future. And if that is true, then we cannot stay silent." Others nodded. The wound inside them, carried for generations, began to bleed again. Back aboard his patrol ship, Captain Arik continued to gather threads. Each new piece of evidence confirmed the same truth. Humanity had been crushed deliberately. He and Lieutenant Mara Seelan worked night after night, spreading the information quietly, careful not to draw Dominion attention too soon. But silence was breaking. In distant corners of the galaxy, human settlements began to murmur of resistance. Small groups practiced with old weapons, repairing hidden ships, gathering supplies. The flame of defiance was being kindled. Arik knew this was only the beginning. "If we rise too soon, we will be crushed again," he told Mara. "We must be careful. We must be ready." Mara looked at him with determined eyes. "Careful, yes, but also bold. Our people need hope, Captain, and hope cannot wait forever." Meanwhile, within the Dominion, unease grew. On the great capital world, the Valar Overlord sat in a chamber of mirrors, speaking with advisors. "Humans stir," the Overlord said. His glowing eyes reflected a cold light. "Old memories are being uncovered. We must control this." One advisor, a bird-like creature with sharp talons, suggested immediate strikes. "Destroy their outer settlements. Burn the evidence before it spreads," but another older voice cautioned restraint. "If we act too harshly, we may awaken the very storm we fear. Let them whisper. Whispers are weak. Fleets are strong." The Overlord considered, then gave his command. "Watch them. Silence those who grow too loud. But do not ignite a fire we cannot control." On the far side of the galaxy, in a forgotten asteroid belt, an ancient fleet slept. These were ships built long ago during humanity's first expansion, hidden away when the Dominion struck. They were not many, and their technology was outdated compared to modern warships, but they carried one priceless advantage: human ingenuity. Captain Arik and Mara discovered records pointing to this secret fleet. With a small crew, they navigated through broken rock fields and collapsed tunnels until they found them. Dozens of vessels coated in dust. Their hulls scarred, but their hearts still beating with potential. The crew walked among the silent giants, running hands along cold steel, eyes shining with pride. Old, Mara said softly, but not broken. Arik smiled faintly. Like us. They began work at once, repairing engines, updating weapons with salvaged parts, and modifying systems in ways no Dominion shipwright would ever consider. Humans had always been creative in survival, using scraps, making tools from nothing, turning weakness into strength. This fleet would be the same. Word of the hidden fleet spread quietly among human worlds. To many, it was not just a military force, it was a symbol. Proof that their ancestors had not been defeated, only waiting. On the agricultural world of Vaynar's Rest, families spoke around dinner tables of ships sleeping in the dark, waiting to rise. On trade routes, merchants whispered of captains who spoke of justice. And in the prisons of the Dominion, human prisoners began to dream of freedom again. The wound, once hidden, was now bleeding across every star. One evening, as the ship's engines hummed quietly, Arik gathered his crew in the command room. A hologram of the galaxy shimmered before them, dots of light marking human settlements across vast distances. Our people are scattered, he said. Alone we are weak. Together we are strong. The Dominion believes we are broken, but they are wrong. We carry the memory of every life they stole, every world they burned. That memory is our strength. That wound is our fire, and now we begin to heal it, not with silence but with action. The crew responded with firm nods. They were not soldiers of a great empire, but they were something more dangerous. They were people who had nothing left to lose. The first signs of change began small. A Dominion patrol vanished in a remote sector. A supply convoy reported sabotage. Mining stations stopped paying tribute. None of these acts were openly claimed, but in every shadow the same rumor grew. The humans are rising. The Dominion dismissed it as nuisance. But those who listened closely felt the shift. One alien merchant speaking in a crowded marketplace shook his head in quiet warning. Mark my words, he said. I have traded with humans for decades. They are patient, yes. But when they decide to act, they act with their whole heart. If they are stirring now, then the galaxy should prepare. For humans do not fight halfway. Back in the asteroid belt, Arik watched as the first of the old ships came alive. Its engines flared, casting blue light across the rocks. The sound of its thrusters was like the heartbeat of something long thought dead. Mara stood beside him, eyes wide. It begins, Arik nodded slowly. Yes, the wound never healed, but perhaps through fire it will. The galaxy, vast and indifferent, did not yet know what was coming, but in small corners, in quiet halls, and across cold stars, whispers turned into voices. Voices turned into vows, and vows would soon turn into battle cries. The humans had remembered. The wound had become their strength, and soon, the Dominion would feel it. The galaxy was vast, filled with millions of stars, yet even the largest empire could not control every corner. The Dominion believed it had crushed human ambition long ago, but now small sparks were beginning to burn in the shadows. And sparks once joined could grow into flames. Captain Arik Danner stood on the bridge of the restored warship Resolute, one of the ancient human vessels found in the asteroid belt. Its hull bore the scars of battles fought centuries earlier, but its engines now hummed with new life. Human engineers had worked day and night, mixing old designs with salvage technology, creating ships that were crude compared to Dominion craft yet strangely unpredictable. Arik's eyes stayed fixed on the stars ahead. It is time, he said quietly. Lieutenant Mara Seelan, standing beside him, gave a firm nod. The mining colony on Drenar cries for help. Dominion troops enslaved the workers, forcing them into the tunnels. If we move fast, we can free them before reinforcements arrive. Arik tightened his grip on the rail. Then we move fast. The operation was simple but dangerous. The Dominion had grown careless in the outer systems, leaving only a small garrison on Drenar. They did not believe humans had the strength to challenge them. That arrogance would cost them. The Resolute, along with 2 smaller ships, dropped out of hyperspace near Drenar. The planet below was a scarred ball of rock, its surface dotted with mines. Smoke rose from the largest settlement where Dominion banners flew over stone walls. Arik gave the order. All hands prepare for combat. We free them tonight. The human ships descended swiftly. Alarms blared across the Dominion outpost as patrol craft scrambled to respond. Lasers cut through the darkness, but human gunners fired with sharp precision. Dominion ships, built for predictable battles, struggled against the erratic maneuvers of human pilots. On the ground, squads of human fighters stormed the gates. They fought with a mix of discipline and wild creativity, using traps, diversions, and sudden charges that left the enemy confused. Within hours, the outpost fell. The enslaved miners emerged from the tunnels, blinking in the harsh light. Many were thin and weary, but when they saw the human flags raised again, cheers erupted. Tears flowed freely as families embraced, and voices shouted the same word again and again: freedom. News of Drenar spread faster than light. In every trade port, in every hidden corner of the galaxy, the story was told and retold. The humans had struck back. The humans had won. Small victories had happened before in the galaxy, but none carried the same weight. Humanity had been considered silent, broken, irrelevant. Now they were fighting again, and that changed everything. On a distant moon, alien rebels whispered with new hope. If humans can fight the Dominion, so can we. On a merchant ship, travelers argued. It is only one colony, one said. But another shook his head. No, it is a beginning. And deep in the Dominion Council chambers, unease spread like a shadow. The Valar overlord listened as reports were read aloud. His glowing eyes narrowed with each word. A human fleet attacked Drenar, said an officer. Our garrison was destroyed. Survivors claim the humans used unpredictable tactics. Losses are unacceptable. The overlord's voice was cold. Unacceptable indeed. And yet predictable. I warned you all. Another council member, a tall insectoid, tapped its claws nervously. Shall we send a full armada? Crush them before this rebellion grows. The overlord was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. Not yet. If we send too much force, the galaxy will notice. Already whispers spread. Let them have their small victories. In time, we will remind them of their place. But deep inside, even the overlord felt something he had not felt in centuries. Doubt. Back on the Resolute, Arik gathered his crew in the command room. A hologram of the Drenar colony shimmered before them, showing freed workers raising makeshift banners of humanity. This is more than a battle, Arik said. It is a message. The Dominion told us we were weak. But we are not weak. We are human. We fight with everything we are, and we do not stop until we win. The crew's eyes shone with fierce pride. They were no longer just a small patrol. They were the beginning of something greater. Lieutenant Mara leaned forward. Other worlds are watching us, Captain. They will rise if we show them we are not afraid. Arik nodded. Then we will give them reason to rise. The weeks that followed were filled with fire. Human ships struck supply convoys, seizing fuel and weapons. Dominion patrols were ambushed in asteroid fields, their wrecks left as warnings. Slave camps on distant moons were stormed and broken open, freeing thousands. Every victory was small compared to the Dominion's vast power, yet every victory lit another flame. Other species, long crushed under Dominion rule, began to stir. Secret envoys came to meet with Arik, offering supplies, intelligence, even fighters. One alien, a tall and gentle creature named Relan, bowed deeply before the human captain. For years we thought resistance was hopeless, Raylan said. But you humans, you are different. You fight not because you believe you can win easily, but because you refuse to surrender. Teach us this strength and we will stand with you. Arik placed a hand on the alien's shoulder. Then stand with us and we will show you. The Dominion began to strike back. Larger fleets were dispatched, determined to crush the rebellion. Yet human tactics proved maddening. They never fought where expected. They used decoys, false signals, and traps. They struck and vanished before the Dominion could respond. One Dominion admiral, furious after losing yet another convoy, shouted in rage. They fight like ghosts. No discipline, no order, only chaos. But that chaos was exactly what made humans dangerous. Where Dominion fleets relied on rigid commands, humans relied on creativity. Each captain was free to adapt, to improvise, to surprise. The Dominion had prepared for armies. They had not prepared for humanity. In the growing rebellion, stories of bravery began to spread. On one moon, a handful of human fighters held a tunnel against an entire Dominion regiment until reinforcements arrived. On another, a single human ship rammed a Dominion cruiser, sacrificing itself to save a colony. These stories were told across the stars, and with each telling, hope grew. Captain Arik knew the war was only beginning. The Dominion still held countless worlds, and their fleets outnumbered humanity 1,000 to 1. But he also knew something else. Numbers alone did not win wars. Spirit did, and humanity's spirit was awake. One night, as the Resolute drifted quietly between stars, Arik stood by the viewport looking out at the endless dark. Mara joined him, her expression calm but determined. "We are only at the beginning," she said. "Yes," Arik replied. "And the Dominion still does not understand us." Mara tilted her head. "And what will they understand, Captain?" Arik's eyes burned as he answered. "That humans do not rise to conquer. We rise because we refuse to kneel. They tried to bury us, but they forgot one thing: you cannot bury fire. And we are fire." Outside, the stars burned silently as if listening. The flames of defiance had been lit, and the galaxy could no longer ignore them. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion felt fear. For the first time in history, the galaxy began to hope. The humans were coming, and the flames of defiance would soon become a storm. The galaxy had felt small tremors for months, but now those tremors became a wave. Humanity was no longer content to hide in the shadows. Their victories on distant colonies had inspired hope, and that hope spread faster than any fleet could. Captain Arik Danner stood on the bridge of the flagship Resolute, staring at the glowing holographic map of Dominion space. Red markers indicated Dominion fleets, white markers showed human ships, and green dots represented systems already freed or in rebellion. "We have liberated another mining colony on Brannock," reported Lieutenant Mara Seelan, her fingers flying over the controls. "Supplies and reinforcements are arriving from nearby systems. The locals are rallying to our cause." Arik nodded. "Good. Every world we free is another spark. And sparks can ignite a galaxy." The Dominion was beginning to feel that spark. In secret chambers across their empire, alarms and warnings filled the air. Dominion officers barked orders, but the humans always seemed one step ahead. Their tactics were unpredictable, daring, and unnervingly clever. On the world of Vanar Prime, a Dominion armada approached to reclaim a recently liberated planet. Their fleets were vast, bristling with warships, weapons, and soldiers trained to crush resistance without mercy. Yet when the humans arrived, they did not meet them head-on. Instead, human ships darted between asteroid fields, using gravity wells, debris, and sudden flares to confuse the Dominion. Captain Arik's voice echoed through the bridge. "Remember, fight smart. Use the terrain. Move as if you are ghosts, strike like fire, and vanish before they can respond." Human pilots executed the plan flawlessly. Dominion ships collided with each other or became trapped in the belts. Explosions lit up the darkness of space, and every successful strike became a story that traveled faster than any messenger. Back on liberated worlds, humans and aliens alike told tales of courage. A single ship holding off an entire battalion, civilians helping to defend tunnels, engineers creating traps that turned the enemy's weapons against them. Every victory, no matter how small, emboldened the oppressed. Captain Arik understood that war was more than ships and weapons. It was about hearts and minds. The human victories were inspiring others, teaching them that even a single individual could make a difference. "Send envoys to neighboring systems," Arik told Mara. "Invite them to join. Show them that freedom is possible." In the coming weeks, envoys traveled from world to world. They carried not only weapons and supplies, but also stories. The oppressed listened, whispered, and eventually acted. Rebel cells formed in previously quiet sectors. Systems once loyal to the Dominion quietly switched sides. Among the alien rebels was Rylan, the gentle but determined creature from a distant forest world. "We did not believe in victory," Rylan admitted to Arik one evening. "But now we do. Humanity has shown us that the impossible can become reality. We will fight beside you," Arik smiled. "And together we will ensure the galaxy remembers that no empire can crush the human spirit, or those who dare to follow it." The Dominion could no longer ignore the situation. The Overlord called a council, the largest in decades. Alien leaders from all corners of the Dominion gathered, their faces pale with concern. "The humans are more than a nuisance," said a scaled commander. "Their attacks are growing bolder. Every system they liberate inspires another." The Overlord remained calm, but his glowing eyes betrayed a rare unease. "We have underestimated them," he admitted. "They are unpredictable. They adapt faster than our fleets can respond. And they do not fight for wealth or power. They fight for justice, for memory, for survival. That is dangerous, another officer hissed in alarm. Dangerous? They are humans, small, scattered, insignificant. The Overlord's gaze cut through the chamber. Insignificant, perhaps? But even the smallest ember can burn an entire forest if left unchecked. And these humans, they are fire. Meanwhile, in human space, Captain Auric prepared for the next strike. The Dominion had fortified the world of Charon's Gate, a strategic hub controlling trade routes and communication lines. Its defenses were formidable. Orbital cannons, multiple fleets, and well-trained soldiers. Many believed it was impossible to defeat. Auric knew that a frontal attack would be suicide. Instead, he planned a series of coordinated strikes that would cripple their infrastructure without risking his ships unnecessarily. Human ingenuity, patience, and careful observation were his greatest weapons. As the fleet moved into position, scouts reported Dominion patrols. Auric's strategy relied on timing, misdirection, and the boldness that had become humanity's signature. Ships split into small units, creating false targets and using feints to lure Dominion forces into ambushes. By the time the main fleet arrived, Dominion defenses were disoriented, and Auric's forces struck decisively. The battle was over in hours. Dominion ships were scattered or destroyed, and Charon's Gate fell to the humans. Civilians cheered, engineers repaired what could be salvaged, and the green flags of freedom were raised above every tower. Stories of human bravery and strategy spread faster than the fleet could move. Alien species previously loyal to the Dominion began to rebel openly. Some offered ships, some shared intelligence, and some simply refused to fight against the humans. Every rebellion, every freed world, added to the growing storm. The Dominion's control weakened as fear and uncertainty spread. They could no longer rely on obedience. They now faced the possibility of a galaxy united against them. On a quiet world, an alien child asked her father, a former Dominion soldier, "Are the humans really that strong?" Her father smiled softly. "It is not just strength that matters. It is courage. They fight not because they are guaranteed to win, but because they refuse to lose. That is strength the galaxy cannot ignore." Captain Auric received messages from liberated colonies. Reports described civilians rising against Dominion soldiers, workers sabotaging machinery, and engineers using human tactics to outsmart their oppressors. Even Dominion officials began to question their own loyalty, seeing how easily humans inspired rebellion. Auric addressed his fleet, standing on the bridge as the stars streaked past. "We fight not for conquest. We fight because it is right. Every colony we liberate is proof that the Dominion can be defeated. Every life freed is proof that we are stronger than they believe. And together we will continue until freedom touches every star." The fleet responded with cheers, a unified sound that carried across the void. They were no longer just humans. They were a symbol, a promise, a reckoning in motion. The Overlord, observing from the capital, could feel the tide shifting. Rumors of insurrection, of allied aliens joining humans, and of Dominion failures reached him daily. He summoned his closest advisors. "What do we do?" asked one. "We strike harder," suggested another. The Overlord shook his head. "Strike harder? That will only confirm the fear. The galaxy is no longer silent. Humanity is no longer silent. Each attack we launch is another story they will tell, another reason for others to rise. No, we must think differently. But I admit I do not yet know how." For the first time, uncertainty entered the heart of the Dominion's greatest ruler. Back in the human fleet, Captain Auric and Mara reviewed plans for the next operation. "The Dominion will try to strike back," Mara said. "We must be ready," Auric nodded. "And we will be, but this is bigger than battles and ships. This is about showing the galaxy that freedom is possible, that even the smallest spark can ignite change. If we do that, then the Dominion cannot win, not even if they try." And so humanity moved forward. Their victories became the flame, their courage became the wind, and the galaxy, once silent and fearful, now began to rise. Systems long oppressed reached out, joining the cause. Fleets grew, alliances formed, and whispers became roars. The Dominion had faced rebellions before, but none like this. They had seen revolts crushed, systems fall into line, and enemies scattered. But humans were not like any enemy before. Their spirit could not be counted. Their courage could not be measured. and their determination would not fade. As Arik looked out at the stars, he knew the moment had come when the galaxy would feel the weight of humanity, and it was only the beginning. The reckoning was spreading, and when it reached every corner of the Dominion, the galaxy would shudder.